Hello, viewers. Welcome back to another engaging episode of Manager's Mantra, where we connect with industry leaders who are shaping the future of business management. Today, we have with us Mr. K. Chandrasekhar, founder and CEO at Forus Health. An alumnus of BITS Pilani and the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, Mr. Chandrasekhar is a healthcare innovator, medtech entrepreneur, and business leader known for driving AI led advancements in ophthalmic diagnostics and digital healthcare accessibility. He also has over 2 decades of experience across global technology and semiconductor industries that includes the likes of NXP Semiconductors, Philips, and Alliance Semiconductors. During this phase of his career, he held leadership responsibilities across business strategy, operations, international business development, and partnership management across markets, including the United States, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Without waiting further, let's jump right into this insightful discussion.
Hi, Mr. Chandrasekhar. Very good morning and welcome to this new session of Manager's Mantra. We really feel great to have you with us today and we are really looking forward to this session. We hope this will be a great session ahead.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
So let us start discussing the first question. India's healthcare system continues to face a significant gap between the demand for specialized care and the availability of specialists. Then we have technology. Now, how can technology help bridge this gap without compromising the quality of care?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very critical question. And this is something which Forus Health has been working on for the last 15, 16 years. So if you really look at the problem statement, we have a huge population and less number of specialist doctors. One of the critical reasons in rural area or in even in tier three, tier four cities, towns, uh, we don't have facilities which are available in the A class cities. So technology can play a huge role in kind of bringing this or bridging this gap. Now, if I take our own example, we started working on ophthalmology devices and we made a lot of products which are point of care. So one of the important things what technology can bring is actually point of care devices. So the devices can be wherever they are. The specialists can sit in tier one and tier two cities and kind of still diagnose a problem wherever the patient is. So point of care devices become a huge advantage. And that coupled with, let's say, a platform which connects these devices to the doctors, telemedicine, and then artificial intelligence, which is also doing some level of diagnosis. I think these are uh, whole spectrum of things which are making smart devices, which are going to enable this whole thing probable across the India. Now, if I take our own example, for example, when we started, we looked at a problem of preventable blindness, and we started to look at, can I make a product which will sit in the remotest corner of the world? At the same time, it will also be used in the most advanced countries like US or UK. Now, when we made the product, let's say a retinal camera, what it did in point of care was in a hospital, you can get dilated because a nurse will be there or a attendant will be there. But in a remote location, you don't want that dilation to happen. So people have to get their eyes tested in a few minutes. So we created a product which will take undilated image of the eye. So that became the huge plus point for a remote diagnosis possibility. Now, if I take another product where we have been making a very advanced product in the neonatal space, uh, you know, retinopathy of prematurity is a huge problem. 3.5 million preterm newborns are there in India, and they all have to be screened for this problem. Now, the issue is pediatric ophthalmologists who can screen them are only 100 to 200 in this country. So it's actually a very, very skewed ratio. So we created products which can be used by neonatal nurses at a price point which was so affordable, and the image quality was on par with what was available globally. So that was a second kind of a technology which example which I can give you. The third one I can give you from our own experience is that refraction. So people now require spectacles. You now see 1 out of 2 Indians almost wearing a spectacle. Now, in remote locations or in villages, people don't get access to an optometrist who's the one who's giving you a spectacle. And they don't have, because there is no business viability there. So most of the optometrists stay in towns and cities. And most of them, if you don't give them the right prescription glasses, don't wear them. So we came up with this technology where you wear something and remotely an optometrist can connect and can kind of exactly derive the prescription what is required, and we can make a glass in the city and courier it to them in the next 2 to 3 days. So that means compliance by that patient will dramatically increase. And very recently we started a digital home clinic, which or digital home eye clinic, which can be a huge value add, especially for geriatric population and people above 60 in cities and towns. And it can stand as a standalone digital eye clinic in primary care in remote villages. So these are examples of how technology can bridge the gap, but at the same time providing quality care at the last mile. And these are very, very critical. And that will also ensure that they are also screened and treated and diagnosed on equipment which are being used in high-end hospitals. So that brings a lot of confidence to people, because our goal is not just to diagnose. Our goal is to ensure that people who are diagnosed go for treatment. And that will happen only if people are convinced that they have been screened and diagnosed using the state of the art equipment which they see in cities and towns. So that, I would say, is a huge role what technology can play.
So thank you so much. Moving on to the next question, about artificial intelligence. Of course, when we talk about technology, we cannot ignore artificial intelligence, given how crucial it has become now. Talking about artificial intelligence in healthcare, it is very critical and a very sensitive topic. Now, AI is increasingly moving from experimentation to clinical applications. Where do you see the greatest potential for AI to transform healthcare delivery over the next 5 years?
I think, as you rightly said, AI is becoming inevitable now. Definitely, AI is going to play a huge role in assisting a doctor. It is not going to replace, but it is going to play a huge role in assisting the doctor. Now, if you look at, I would look at 3 or 4 areas. One, basically, is the diagnosis part itself. So, for example, when our camera takes a retinal picture, uh, the doctor has to see multiple images to see whether there is a disease or not, whether there is a pathology or not. Now, AI can play a big role in kind of identifying the whole thing and helping the doctor to save his time. So it can basically show him that out of these 20 images, these 4 images, there was a problem, and just highlight to him. Also give him lead indicator that this looks like a retinopathy or this looks like a macular degeneration. So this is something which a huge areas where you're also seeing that happening in radiology, you're seeing it happening in oncology, you're seeing happening in breast cancer. So in many areas, imaging is happening, and then AI is actually able to kind of help in diagnosing or pinpointing where there is a lesion or a lump. So these are going to become very, very critical, where it is going to help doctors save a lot of time. The second area is going to be on the preventive care. So, for example, we are working on what we call as oculomics, where we are using a retinal image to start looking at whether that patient has a problem with respect to heart, or with respect to kidney, or with respect to a neuro issue. So, eye is considered a window to the human body, and they can start to give early warning signals of whether something is going wrong. So, if this can be deployed in primary care, the primary care physician will be able to help the understand that there seems to be an early warning signal and advise the patient the next steps to take. So, for example, if the patient is identified with a cardiovascular risk, the doctor can ask him to do subsequent test, could be a treadmill or an echo, whatever the doctor feels. And that can help to prevent a patient to go, let's say, from a problem to, let's say, a heart attack. So he can kind of prevent that at a much earlier stage. So this is the second area what we see as a possibility. The third one is basically productivity and workflow improvement within, let's say, a hospital. So, if it takes 20 minutes for a patient to go through certain things, AI can help you to kind of work on the workflow based on where the maximum crowd is, and kind of divert you to another imaging. Those kind of things AI can help you do, which will help patients to save time and hospitals to kind of improve their productivity in a very big way. The fourth area, it is also going to help physicians. Let's say that there are two patients coming with the same problem, but their profiles are different. And medicine responded to patient A versus what responded to patient B, they can have all of that available. And that will kind of make the doctor to give the right decision on what next to do. So it will basically assist the doctor to actually, based on historical data which is available, give him, so that he doesn't have to search things. So there are going to be tremendous way what AI is going to kind of impact or influence the way healthcare or health tech is going to be over the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you so much. So, like with every opportunities comes, a lot of challenges. Let us talk about the
Challenges, yeah.
biggest barriers now. What according to you, are the biggest barriers to deploying the AI-based healthcare solutions at scale, especially when you expand it to India's tier two, tier three, and rural markets?
I think one of the first things from an infrastructure standpoint could be connectivity, because a lot of these AI models, if they are very heavy, they could be running on the cloud. So if you have extremely good cloud connectivity, then there is no issue. But in case you don't, then there could be a problem. That's why we start to design, let's say, models which are much lighter, which can run on the edge, which can basically run offline. So you can kind of avoid that problem or avoid that barrier. But that will work only for if you can create models which are lighter, which will run on the edge. But if it's a large model, then it will probably still require internet. That could become a barrier. But the infrastructure, what was 10 years back versus what is today, huge difference. So there is all the villages are now having internet, and that probably in the next 2 to 3 years can still change dramatically. So I think that barrier we can definitely overcome. This is the first one. Uh, Definitely, when you start opening up and AI becomes the buzzword, and because this is healthcare, you will have validated algorithms and not so validated algorithms. Now, whether the provider is aware of what the regulator wants, what kind of efficacy is it requiring, or what is approved and moving, they can tend to use not so validated algorithms because it is AI, maybe because of cost or proximity. And if those results are not what is expected, this can actually lead to a trust factor coming out of AI, right? So this could be an area where regulators and companies and service providers can jointly put together an effort, rather than kind of taking AI as something which is there and using it. It should be a well-regulated, tested product, so that the maximum advantage of what AI can add value to the patient and to the doctor can be fully utilized. I think that is a very, very important thing which will have to happen, and that probably could be a barrier. And that this I don't think will happen overnight. There'll be a lot of misses, and then based on that, there'll be some self correction, and then I think most of the AI will get whatever is approved and validated will be actually put to use, which will actually add a huge value.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, your career path is pretty unique and very interesting. You have moved from technology to healthcare. You have been into the leadership positions of some of the biggest tech global giants that we know, which includes a very familiar household name in the electronic sector, that includes a big giant in the semiconductor sector, and now from technology and strategy career into a healthcare entrepreneurship, despite not originally coming from a healthcare background. Now, what triggered this? What made you take that leap?
My first 20 years, I spent pretty much in the semiconductor industry, electronics and semiconductor industry. And we basically got inspired by this organization called Arvind Eye Hospital. It's a eye hospital based out of Madurai and now across Tamil Nadu and a little bit in Andhra Pradesh. Uh, we learned basically that the preventable blindness as a problem statement. Like India has the largest blind population in the world, and 80% of this could have been prevented if they were screened and diagnosed and treated on time. Now, when these people, who are pretty much in the lower part of the pyramid, when they kind of start working maybe at the age of 10 and probably work till 70 or 65, and when they need to have a very peaceful retirement life with their grandchildren and children, they go blind and they become a liability to their own family. So a blind man is seen as a mouth without hands. So there is a mouth to feed and there is no hands to contribute. So he becomes a emotional and an economic liability to his own kith and kin. And we cannot blame them because they are working on their daily wages. They can't do this babysitting of their parents. So this was something which we learned from Aravind Eye Hospital. And we took up the same mission of eradicating avoidable blindness, which is the Aravind Eye Hospital's mission. And we wanted to solve this using technology. While Aravind is building hospitals and clinically solving this problem, we wanted to solve this problem using technology. So that is fundamentally the motivation. And we are happy to say that over the last 15 years, we have been living by this mission. We have so far screened more than 25 million people globally across 85 countries and probably saved about 3 to 4 million from going blind. That's a metrics which we continuously kind of track to see what kind of impact are we creating.
So just continuing from this question, what is harder when building a deep tech healthcare company, developing the technology, finding the product market fit, or creating an ecosystem that can actually adopt the technology?
I think even before you start, I think the product market fit has to be fully analyzed, right? So you need to know what is your solution, what is the problem you're trying to solve, what are the existing solutions, what does the existing solution not solve currently, which you are trying to solve, whether who will buy, how are they willing to pay, and is there what are the competitors who are around and why your value proposition is better than theirs. So I think that is the starting point, and unless you are convinced and have clarity on that starting point, the product market fit, I don't think we should even proceed further, because which is the most critical thing. So you'll have to spend enough time on this. Now, the other things, this problem happens when you are starting the company. Next thing, when you come is after you have come up with a product idea, you then get into how do I create this product? Do I have the competencies? So that becomes the next problem, right? So basically, this problem, you ask what is harder. I think each of them are harder at different life cycles. So when you create, the most important thing is to do your homework on the product market fit, which is first. Then, after you have created what is that you want to build, then you look at that becomes the bigger problem. So, how do I build, let's say, this product? How do I acquire optical competency? So, when we started, there were very limited optical competency in this country. So, how do we create optical engineers, or how do we get optical engineers who can design what we want? How do we build, let's say, handheld products? So, all of these are technical challenges which become a huge problem. And but when you start building a team, the team is able to kind of start to deliver. So that becomes compared. I'm not saying it will not be a not be a problem, but it will become a lesser problem. Then you get into where you're starting to, even the basic ecosystem of your subcontracting ecosystem becomes an issue. Now, you conceive an idea, you can't build everything. So let's say I want to build an optomechanical component. The subcontractors in India should be able to deliver you a quality component, and that ecosystem may not be fully ready. So you need to kind of work, or we have actually worked with a lot of those players and brought them to the manufacturing standards like 13485 for medical devices, brought a lot of them to that level of standard. So you need to kind of have the patience, do hand holding, bring all the knowledge what you have, which you have gained, to build. Then the bigger problem is making the ophthalmologist to kind of buy. So that ecosystem, how to make that whole selling happen, whether building a sales team, building a value proposition, building the economics, financially viable model, all of this becomes the next challenge. The bigger challenge is continuous, which is like, okay, you identify somebody with an issue. How do you bring awareness that diabetic retinopathy can be a huge problem? Glaucoma can be a huge problem. You can lose vision. Even in educated, literate community, we find that people are not aware. So, how do you build that awareness in the ecosystem? So, as you move from where you started to where you are, the challenges keep shifting, but all of them continue to be challenged. So some of them are smaller challenges, some of them are larger challenges. But I think the ecosystem challenge, the awareness challenge, and the compliance challenge, it's not only about awareness, it's also about compliance. So let's say you have retinopathy and you will live for the next 40 years. You need to continuously get your eyes checked to ensure you don't go blind. How do I ensure that you comply? Some comes inborn, but a lot of things have to be persuaded. So how do you persuade that? How do you build that persuasion ecosystem? So each of this become relevant at different time intervals.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. A lot of rich insights coming out from you. Thank you for that. Uh, a lot of MBA graduates, today would love to and rather aspire to be in the healthcare sector after completing their studies, of course. Given your background across technology, strategy, and entrepreneurship, what skills should this MBA students develop if they want to build careers in health tech?
I think, see, a lot of things are taught in MBA, and I think most of the things, uh, having a technical overview, financial overview, strategic overview, I think those are all taught. But I would just talk about only one thing, and from my side, that is understanding of the problem statement, or I would say deep understanding of the problem statement. So if you're trying to solve, let's say, breast cancer as a problem, just to give you a heads up, you should know what is the prevalence, what are the current technologies available, um, where it is being provided, why. Is there a behavioral, for example, there could be inertia in women taking up those tests, um, and what is the solution you are willing to propose, why that solution behaviorally as well as clinically as well as technically is feasible. So you need to have a very, very deep understanding of the problem statement. Unless you have a deep understanding of the problem statement, and if you don't have that right, even if you have a very good technical team, you get finances, even if you try to create a product, it will not work because you have not deeply understood the problem. And that, I would say, is one mantra which most of the MBA students who want to take up leadership positions should have, especially for healthcare, because you are creating a solution which is not going to be used just by one person, right? There is a patient, there is a caregiver, there is a doctor, there is the doctor's ecosystem, there is our patient's relatives, and ultimately there is a technology company, right? There are so many players in the value chain, and your solution should be accessible, affordable, usable, behaviorally, financially to that. So you need to kind of have a deep understanding, and that will really, really help them to go a big way to become leaders in this space.
Thank you so much for that. So, moving on to the last question of the session. MBA graduates today move on to different sectors, and some sectors uh, are very, very technical. Okay, they kind of need that kind of technical knowledge. In this case, healthcare, of course, you need to have a proper healthcare knowledge before moving into the sector. But then, how important is this technical literacy for the MBA graduates who want to move into leadership roles, even if they don't have a technical background?
No, I think definitely having a technical knowledge is very critical, because when you're taking leadership roles, you are actually creating the vision for the company. You are creating what this company will be today, tomorrow, and after 10 years. And technology is the biggest component, or could be the biggest component. Even if you are actually doing a service, an app could be a component of that. So it becomes very critical for you to have an overview. You don't have to have, if I'm taking AI, am I going to use this technique? Am I using CNN, or I'm going to use a deep learning model, or am I using some other model? Am I going to develop an LLM? I don't think that you don't have to go to that depth, but you should have a knowledge of what can be useful for what kind of application. What is the world going? So if you are working in X space, you should know what the world in the same space is doing, so that you can guide your team. Of course, they will deliver technically the last thing what is required, but you should have an overview. So for example, I am more electronic side, but the product what we make consists of software, consists of mechanical engineering, rather than just having a very a top level 50,000 feet kind of a knowledge. A slightly deeper knowledge is required. The third thing is also that there are the strategic decisions which you may have to make, whether I should make a wearable, whether I should make a handheld, whether I should make a desktop, whether I should make a large. So, and how does technology change for each of them? Because they have a significant impact on the costing, the affordability, the profitability, so many other things. So you should also have a reasonable knowledge. Where is the supply chain? Because even today, supply chain is a big subject, which was not so a big subject 3 4 years back. Today it is becoming super important, because you have all these geopolitical situations. So you should know where to source your components, and is there going to be a problem? Is there going to be end of life? So there is an overview which you need to know, because sometimes your engineers, your technical managers can deliver everything, but you should have a holistic view of what are you delivering as a solution, and have reasonable knowledge on each of them. Then you will be also able to talk to people to say, or guide them what next step to take and what next step to go. Rather, you don't have to do hands on, it's not required, but you should tell them that, hey, have you tried this, or are you looking at this? So then there is also the kind of respect you earn becomes far more higher. So I think it's very, very critical that.
Thank you so much, sir, for the for that lovely session. It was great
Thank you.
interacting with you today to listen to your thoughts and the kind of practical examples that you shared with us. It would be a great learning for all the management students and for all students, all the young leaders watching this interaction. We are really glad to have you with us today, and we'll be hopeful to stay in touch with you and have you again in any of the future sessions of BSmart Business Standard. Thanks.
Absolutely. Pleasure is also mine. And thank you for, giving me this opportunity.
So that's a wrap on this episode of Manager's Mantra. Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar, for sharing your thoughts and providing career tips to the students. BSmart viewers, we hope you found this conversation helpful. Share your thoughts with us at bsmart.edit@bsml.in. Follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram for more such insightful and inspiring content. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing.